Do you ever want to dive deeper into the Bible, but you just don't know where to begin or struggle to feel like you even have the time? When you read the Bible, do you get frustrated because you know there is so much more in there, you just have no clue how to get it out? Or maybe you just want to know the Bible better and you are looking for any resource to help. Well, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Context and Color of the Bible podcast. We are two sisters.
I'm Veronica.
I'm Erica. We love to study the Bible and secondly, help others understand it better. When it comes to our own study of Scripture, we have found that in bringing back the context of Scripture, it adds so much to our understanding. It actually adds color to the black and white pages of the text. So Veronica, This is episode 140.
Yep.
We are making our way through Genesis.
We're going to go quickly today.
Oh, we are?
Well, through
We've
several
got a
chapters.
lot. That's true. Yeah, you've got a lot covered for us today.
Yeah, and I forgot to remind you, I wanted to talk about real quick and just remind people, we take turns teaching.
Oh, right.
Series-wise.
Yep.
So if you're jumping into the middle of Genesis, which I don't know why you would,
Yeah.
but maybe you've just started the Genesis series with us and you haven't listened to any of our previous podcasts.
Right.
We don't, it's not always me being the main teacher.
No, we take turns.
We take turns because basically what it means is if one of us is teaching,
The other one has time to study.
yes. So that means Erica's studying right now.
For the fall, Lord willing. Or sometimes we co-teach.
Yep.
Like Esther.
Esther, what else do we co-teach? Exodus.
Yeah.
Acts was starting out as co-teaching.
Yeah.
And then exactly what I wanted to happen was that it became all Erica.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because you had the better resources.
I did. Yeah.
So
I did on
Erica's
that one.
taught on Ruth,
Acts.
Acts.
I don't know. You did Jonah.
I did Jonah.
Such a fun one.
Yeah. So just in case you go, oh, I was here to hear Erica. And she doesn't seem to be
Right,
taking the lead.
right, yeah.
Realize there are other series we've done. So if you want all Erica teaching,
Parables we
Ruth.
went back and forth.
Parables we went back and forth. But Erica did all Ruth. Erica did all Acts. I
Yeah.
kind of started at the beginning. Just hang in there. Erica will take over quickly. But
Yeah.
it just allows us the freedom to be presenting information, but also preparing for the future.
Right.
So, and we have plans for this summer.
Yes.
If somebody can get his act together.
Right. Yeah. No
No pressure.
no pressure,
But I will mention it to him again.
we'd love to have him come back.
Yes. But today we are going to cover Genesis 30 through 33.
Okay.
Because what we're trying to do is last week when we left off, we were talking about Jacob's running away from home and we had all these dots we were connecting. And so today we're going to finish connecting those dots. So in a way, it's kind of like an arc. What we started last week at the beginning of the story, the introduction, we're going to come back to those dots and wrap up the story. And just as a way that the author keeps this all in a way flowing, because you want to see it as one continual story.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep. So you're going to point out those
Yes.
dots to us today and connect them.
Yes.
Okay.
And what we're going to start with is chapter 30 starts with these fertility issues.
Right.
Leah's having babies. Rachel's not.
Which would be painful enough to be married to the same man, but then
Then to have this competition,
oh,
have this desire, this natural desire for children,
that can't.
and it's not happening.
Oh.
And really, here's the thing. Scripture doesn't offer any good advice, counsel, understanding into fertility issues.
I guess I'm struggling with the word understanding.
Why
like-
God allows it.
Oh, okay. Is that where you're going? Okay. Yes.
Yes. Of just
Yeah.
what I want people to see is these are real people
Right.
with real pain that we still have today.
Right.
Ultimately, we're going to point out that this whole having babies issue started in chapter 29 with God being referenced, and it ends here in chapter 30 with God being referenced.
Right.
And we've seen that God opens and closes rooms, but that doesn't make it easy. That doesn't make that desire go away. That doesn't make women go, oh, okay, I'm fine with it now.
Right. God closed my womb, so it's fine.
Right. But what I love is that he includes women in the storyline
Right.
whose problems we can relate to,
Right. Yeah.
whose heartache we can relate to, either personally or because we have family or friends.
Right.
And so it just shows these are real people and their lives are not perfect and without pain,
Right.
even though God has a huge plan to use them.
Right.
So with that, we get Rachel desperate for children. We've seen where Sarah decided a concubine
Right.
was the solution.
Didn't work so well.
No. Then we came to Rebecca, and Rebecca's husband, Isaac, prayed for Rebecca. And it says God heard that prayer and gave Rebecca a child.
Two.
So Rachel, two. Rachel, in a way, has two options.
And guess which one she goes with?
Yeah. She picks the concubine.
Right, because why not?
Sure. It clearly worked for Abraham.
Clearly.
And so Rachel has two sons through her concubine. Well, then all of a sudden, Leah stops having babies. And who knows why.
Right.
So she goes, okay, here's my concubine. I can have babies through my concubine too. So with Zilpah, we get two more babies. And again, all of this is happening in a very short verses. But think of how long it's taking for this really to play out.
Because it takes at least 2 years to have two babies.
Right.
I mean, I guess it can be 18 months.
Right. It's kind of close.
But for the most part.
But it's just time. And it's showing that tension is building between these sisters. It's clearly a competition. It's clearly he's my husband. I'm the favorite wife. I'm providing him what he wants, what he needs.
It makes no sense to me. It's already hard with two of us in this marriage bed. And now I'm going to add two more women.
Right.
Now there's 4 of us.
Because that'll make it easier.
Because that makes everything better. I mean, as much as I love my sister, I would
my
not want to
word.
share a husband.
No, we said that last week.
Last week. Oh.
We haven't changed our minds.
Nope.
But so what's fascinating, though, in verse 15, Rachel and Leah are kind of having this discussion, and Leah's like, hey, I want time with Jacob. And she gets the mandrakes, and there's this whole conversation going on. But what's interesting is the word that is used, the verb, he can sleep with you, is a Hebrew word, and it's never used in Genesis in the loving relationship of a marriage. Instead, it's used with the men and the angels at Sodom and Gomorrah. Then it's used again when Abimelech talks about what could happen with Rebecca in verse 26 or chapter 26. It's used in chapter 34 when Dinah gets raped. It's used in 35 when Reuben sleeps with Bilhah, which that'll actually come up later now that I'm thinking about it.
Right.
And in Genesis 39 when Potiphar's wife requests to sleep with Joseph.
So it's more of a lust-filled,
Yes. It's not
I love you.
It's not an intimate, let's connect on a deeper.
So Rachel's basically saying, you can go have sex with my husband.
Yeah.
You
can use him.
can use my husband.
Ultimately use him to have another baby.
Yes. Okay.
So it's
what a slap in the face to your sister.
I know. But what a sad commentary.
Yeah.
For where they both are, how they view Jacob, how they view their relationship with Jacob.
He's a baby maker.
Yeah. And so, but it works.
Because she does get pregnant.
Yeah. Leah actually has 2 more sons and a daughter after this. So, it's not that Jacob's not going to Leah.
Right.
There might have been maybe some tension for a while that he didn't. Whatever. Jacob is spending time with Leah. So Leah has all these children. And finally in verse 22, God remembers Rachel.
And the word remember means what, Veronica?
It means God is finally going to act. And if you go just by Leah's children, it's been at least 10 years.
Oh, that would be so hard.
So it's not like this is just a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years. This is 10 years of Rachel desperately wanting.
And watching.
All these women around her having babies with Jacob. So clearly she's the issue.
Oh, ouch.
That would just be a heartache, which would add to the tension.
Right.
In this family.
Well, and you said before when we were talking about it that clearly Jacob would not ignore Rachel. He would give her ample opportunity to get pregnant. So it's becoming very obvious she's the problem. Wow.
Yeah.
But you never see Jacob crying out to God. You never see Rachel. Like Rachel goes to Jacob at the beginning, give me babies or I will die.
Right.
You know, and the sad thing is she does die.
Yeah,
from
she
a
does.
Baby. Like her words come back.
And so again, but it's in 29:31, Yahweh's credited with giving babies. He gives them to Rachel or Leah because she's in a loveless marriage. And then in 30 verse 24, Rachel says, God has finally given me this baby. So you just have God still in control of all of it.
Right.
Whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. But all right, so we've got now all these children.
Right.
We've needed to set that up. So now in our storyline, Jacob actually needs to go home.
Right.
He ran away from home.
Right.
And now it's time to go back home. And so what's fascinating, though, he's been working for his uncle. And he says, hey, it's time for me to go home. And Erica, in verse 27 of chapter 30, can you read that, please?
Yes. But Laban said to him, if I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you.
So again, if we're keeping this idea of the covenant, God's told Jacob, I'm going to give you the same covenant. I'm going to continue on the promises I gave to Abraham. Laban sees it. Laban sees he's been blessed because of Jacob.
Right.
And he's like, don't go.
Right.
Because what do we know about Laban? What do we keep coming back to with Laban?
He sees the dollar signs.
Yes. So he doesn't want all that wealth and that blessing to go away.
Which honestly, who could blame him in one sense? I mean, I get that. How he does it isn't the best, but I get
But it's not, oh, these are my daughters and my grandchildren.
Oh, right.
It's not, oh, you're my family. I love you.
That's true. It's the money.
It's the money.
The money's the bottom line.
So later on, when we have more issues,
right,
Laban doesn't really care about his daughters and his grandchildren.
Right.
And so Jacob stays. And Jacob stays and works for Laban. And what we see as these years go by, Jacob's actually a hard worker.
Right.
He watches character as he does this. When an animal gets torn or dies or something bad happens, Jacob takes that.
Right. He takes that debt on himself.
Yeah, that loss on himself. So we see Jacob and everything's prospering and doing well.
Right.
And who knows what that dream means with all the sticks and the sheep and the goats and the spots.
Right.
But Jacob's working.
Right.
He is doing something to make the wealth grow, to make the farm prosperous ultimately.
He's not just sitting down doing nothing.
Right. And so, but again, bottom line is that's God fulfilling the covenant.
Right.
That's God giving Jacob. He came penniless.
Oh, yeah.
And now think of the wealth he has.
Well, he has a ton of kids. If anything, he's got to feed.
Right? But so now as we get into chapter 31, God finally comes and says, hey, Jacob, it's time to head home.
Right.
It's been 20 years since Jacob ran away.
Boy, have things changed in 20 years.
But think of where he's heading back now. He came alone.
Right.
Now he's going back with a family and with a lot of animals. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Right.
But
and servants to take care of them.
Yeah, that means he's got servants. He's got wealth to go back with him. So he grabs his wives, not the concubines, and he says, hey, we're going to kind of sneak away. We're going to sneak away from Dad. And here, the wives don't complain about, no, we can't. We love our father. Again, they've probably
that's true.
have had that understanding of Dad doesn't really love us. Dad loves the money we bring in. Dad loves the blessings that we bring in.
In verse 15, they say, does he not regard us as foreigners?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we saw that earlier in chapter 30. So you're just getting insight into this family of it's not the best.
They're dysfunctional too.
Yes.
They're
kind
just
of
all
like
dysfunctional.
we've been seeing. And so what's fascinating is they leave and then Laban gets word. Right. So he goes after them.
Right.
Again, because do you let a good thing go?
Nope.
And so, but before he gets there, in verse 21, it says Jacob's fleeing. And verse 21, Jacob had fled from his home to escape Esau, and now he's fleeing from this home to escape Laban. And in chapter 27, verse 43,
okay,
so way back when the story started, we're connecting some dots. Rebekah told Jacob, arise and flee.
Right.
And now in 21, it literally reads in the Hebrew, he fled and arose.
So we flipped.
We're flipping. The Jewish Publication Society commentary says The reversal of the word order symbolizes a reversal in direction.
He's going back home.
So you need to keep seeing all these dots we've now turned and we're heading back where we came from.
So we're undoing what we did. Okay.
Yep. And so, but before Laban gets to Jacob, Laban has a slight encounter with God.
Right.
Put it mildly. And in a way, it takes the wind out of Laban's sails.
Mm-hmm.
Here, he had this big speech probably planned, and it was going to go just this way. And then,
right. God said,
yeah. And so when Laban catches up to Jacob, it's more, I didn't get to hug my daughters and my grandchildren goodbye.
Right.
I just wanted to say goodbye. I would have had a party for you. It would have been, really?
You
just wonder what the body language of all of them was like.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Were they all rolling their eyes?
Mm-hmm. And so instead, the only thing Laban can say, though, was, well, somebody took my household gods. And this is where it would be fun to watch it play out.
Right.
Because we already know Rachel took them.
Right.
As the audience, we know it. So just the suspense, it's almost like the author's going, first he went to Jacob's tent.
Right.
And you're kind of keying in on Rachel watching
Right.
as the sweat's starting to pour down.
Right.
And then Laban goes to Leah's tent. It's like, oh, well, he should go to his other daughter next. But if you want a really good suspenseful story, then we go to one concubine or maidservant and then the other one. And then finally Rachel. So it's just that way of that storytelling. You can just hear as they play this out, as they reenact it. Draw it out. Make it suspenseful. But what's fascinating is, again, is we've been talking in Genesis of laying foundations for future books of the Bible and future laws.
Right.
So what we have here is, even though Leviticus hasn't been written, God hasn't talked to Moses yet, we're already seeing that a woman on her period is considered unclean or impure.
Right. She's set apart here. Rachel is.
Yes. And so it's a big slap in the face.
She's sitting on them.
To her dad and his household gods.
I'm going to sit.
Yes. So we're
On an
already
idol.
laying that. It's a blatant, outright rejection of her dad's, personally of her dad and of his religion.
Makes you wonder why she took them in the first place.
Well, maybe she never got over having her husband given to her sister first.
Oh,
Maybe
I'm gonna
there's
hurt
some-
you, Dad.
Maybe there's some leftover animosity.
Which, let's be honest, every woman would totally
Right?
get that. Like,
So you
okay.
just have, I don't know,
right,
but clearly things have not always gone smoothly for this father and daughter.
and then what does she do with them after this?
I don't know, because we do get later to chapter 35 where Jacob says, purify the camp.
Okay.
So she could potentially still have them in chapter 35. And he's like, hey, time to get rid of all those household gods.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but what
Yeah.
I love is Laban never really apologizes.
No.
Laban never went, whoops.
No. He's just like, this is all mine, but there's nothing I can do. So you can have it.
Right. And
Like,
then he goes,
what?
hey, let's have a covenant meal.
Right.
Let's make a treaty. Because as we
Right.
talked about with that table fellowship idea, once you eat together, past grievances can't be brought up.
So you have to forgive me for everything, Jacob, and let it go.
Yes. Yes. But so this is really where the story of Laban ends.
Right.
You know, if, okay, they've had a covenant, it's not time. We're not going to bring this up again. Laban doesn't come up again.
No.
And
he
it's
doesn't.
okay.
Yeah.
There's a covenant. We put a pretty bow on it.
It's done.
It's done. It's forgotten. So ultimately what matters is Jacob went away for 20 years and came back with God having fulfilled what he told him and what Isaac
Right.
blessed him for, of you
Right.
will have wealth and children. And so now we've seen kind of Laban and Jacob are done,
Right.
which was kind of the middle of our story, just all their deceit, all their tension.
Right.
Now we've got to go back to where the story started.
Esau.
Esau. And so as we do that, Jacob's heading back to the land of promise. And in verse 4, he sends a message to chapter 32.
Okay, chapter 32, verse 4.
Yes, if you would read the message he gives his brother Esau.
Yeah, you are flying today.
I know.
He instructed them, "This is what you are to say to my master Esau. You are to, your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now."
So Jacob doesn't go, "Hey, remember how I ran away from you?"
Right. I'm going to put a good spin on it.
It was not, "I ran away from you and I stayed there."
Right.
Kind of not reminding him, "I stayed there so I could avoid you until you got over being mad at me." But you have Jacob calling him Lord and brother. It's when Jacob left home, he was supposed to be the Lord and the master.
Because of the blessing he took.
His older brother was going to serve him.
Right.
But in a way, you have Jacob going, let's approach this carefully.
Right. So he is going to make it obvious he's serving his
I'm not
brother.
coming to lord this over you. I'm coming a little more humbly. Let's pave the way a little bit with my words. And then what he does, he sends all these animals.
Right.
And what's interesting is he doesn't send he doesn't say, "I'm going to send you camels."
Right. In the list, he sends his brother.
Right.
In verse 5.
He leaves out camels, which actually have quite a bit of wealth attached to them. So then when Esau finally does get the animals, and there's camels.
An extra surprise on my surprise.
What a nice little add-on. But so Jacob spends the night sending Esau these gifts, divides his families
Right.
up into groups.
Right.
Kind of like, okay, you less favorites. You the ones I'm willing to lose first.
Right.
You go in the front.
Right.
Which would just be, again, do you want to add tension to your family?
Oh, seriously. On the one hand, you
Rank
feel like
them.
Jacob's grown up, and the way he's handling Esau is very impressive.
Right.
But the way he views his family, you can totally see where all the troubles come from between Joseph and his brothers. Because Jacob,
Makes it obvious.
makes it obvious.
Yeah, because you just kind of wonder who went first, Bilhah or Zilpah?
Right.
Did it just depend on the day? I'm more
Right.
irritated with you or the children?
Right.
Yours are being louder, more annoying.
Right.
You get the front. But so as he sends each group with cattle and animals and servants to Esau, what were you picturing? I've always just pictured like Jacob, his sons, his wives, and a couple animals.
Right. A flock.
Right.
A small flock of sheep and goats.
According to the Jewish Publication Society, when you add it up, it's 550 animals.
Okay. 550 that he sends to Esau.
Right.
Which means he had more.
He kept some of that back. He didn't keep like 2 or 3.
Right.
Because if you're going to start over, you need a good mix of genetics. You need some
male and female.
Right. And more than 1 or 2 of each pair. So in case something happens.
Right.
So I'm going to say at least 600,
Right.
I'll give a very conservative. Say he had 600 cattle with him and sheep, animals, or whatever. He and his sons cannot take care of all of that.
Right.
So the servants he has this is a large group. I mean, think of what it would be like to go, I'm reversing back and heading home.
And now I've got this
massive entourage.
Right. With me.
That I'm in control of. And he's heading home to add it to Isaac's collection.
And we already know Isaac got 100-fold at least 1 year.
So think of how big when Jacob comes, this wealth of this family is.
Because God has blessed them because of the covenant.
Yes. And so he comes, he gives Esau time to look over each group, admire it, scrutinize it, talk to the men. I'm sure he was probably going, okay, so when you see my brother,
right,
make sure to say this, don't say that.
Right. And
then we do get Jacob spending the night alone. And what's fascinating, I'm going to back up a little bit in this chapter. At verse 10, 32:10, if you'd read that, Erica.
32 verse 10. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two groups.
Jacob's praying this back to the Lord. And that word, I am unworthy of all the kindness.
It's our favorite word, isn't it?
Yes. What is it, Er?
Chesed.
Yes. So Jacob's seeing it. So again, if you just think, has Jacob been an amazing, upstanding citizen?
No, not really.
Has Jacob done it all right in how he lives his life?
Nope, not really.
No, and yet God is faithful.
Right.
To what he promised. So again, that idea is it was he looked at Abraham and Isaac going, okay, they really did do
right.
Mostly
right.
Good. They weren't perfect. Jacob's kind of a whole nother ball of wax.
Right.
But yet God is faithful to what he promised.
Right.
Because what we're ultimately going to see again, go bigger. God is faithful to Israel, even when Israel is unfaithful.
Right.
And we're laying that foundation now with Jacob.
Right.
So Jacob spends the night, chapter 33. And as we get to, he spends the night, wrestles with God. We're not going to get into any of that because we're continuing this storyline. Jacob now needs to meet his brother.
Oh, could you imagine? Like, it's been 20 years.
Yes.
Is he going to kill me? Dun, dun, dun.
Well, and think about it. We left off with Isaac and Jacob. Isaac saying, your brother will be your master. You will be your master of your brother, and he will bow down to you. Yet when they meet in verse 3
of 33,
what happens?
He himself, Jacob, went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. Okay. It's almost like Jacob is keeping in mind what the blessing was.
Right.
So he can undo it.
And undoing it. And then look at the end of verse 4. What do they do?
Verse 4. Kissed
and
wept.
So what started with Isaac in a kiss of deceit, way back in chapter 27. And then Rachel kisses Jacob when he arrives. And then Laban comes and gives a kiss of deceit. And then we're back to Jacob and Esau.
You should do like a picture.
I know, some kind of graphic.
Some kind of graphic with all these dots.
I know, that's what I keep trying
connections.
to think.
I don't know how you would do that, but
a lot of arrows.
Right, because there's so many dots.
There is. And so it's just fascinating of all these little dots that just connect this story and show it. Because the idea is you want to keep this story as one whole unit.
The story of Jacob and Esau.
Starting with Isaac and the blessing.
Okay.
Till now.
And then Laban's in the middle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Laban's kind of that middle interim part.
Okay.
And so in verse 4, Esau and Jacob's meeting here is told in the Hebrew actually in 5 short verbs. Just like in chapter 25, verse 34, where they're dealing with a stew, it was 5 short Hebrew verbs.
Oh my goodness.
So we have just real quick, succinct, we start with just a quick interaction with these boys, kind of ends with a quick interaction with these brothers.
But this time there's
unity, reconciliation,
forgiveness.
But here in verse 11, Jacob pushes for Esau to take the gift. Now, in 32:13, he uses the word gift as minha.
Okay, sure.
In Hebrew, meaning gift, tribute, or offering. But here in chapter 33, verse 11, he uses the word baruch, which means blessing and gift. So in a way, by throwing out that word blessing, here, take the blessing.
Right. It's a reminder, like, I'm trying to undo what I did to you.
I know what I did. I know, I'm not going to say right, but that whole situation way back 20 years ago, let's fix it. Let's get on better standing with each other. So here I can make up for it. I can help bless you. Like I've been blessed. Now I can turn around and bless you.
Right.
And so it's just fascinating because Esau accepts it. And now all these past wrongs have been in a way undone. You've come back and it's like, okay, time to put the pretty bow on it.
You know, it's interesting they don't have a meal together. And that just popped in my mind. You know, like Laban.
Right.
You kind of wonder if that's why after this, Jacob is so insistent, like, leave, leave, leave.
Right. Well, and let's be honest. What happens with the Israelites and the Edomites?
Yeah, they don't get along at all. But you just wonder, there is no meal.
No, there's nothing saying past grievances are forgotten.
Right. We see Jacob trying his best to do that. But you wonder if there was always a tense.
If the body language was still saying,
right.
I'll take this.
Right.
But I'm not forgetting.
Right. Because why did Esau come with 400 men?
And why did God need to say in Deuteronomy then, don't hate the Edomites?
Right.
Unless there's still always been
this tension.
Yes. Because truthfully, these brothers separate.
And we don't see them.
We don't see them come back together.
Okay.
No.
So.
Yeah. So that's been this storyline.
Right.
And as we get now, we need to start shifting our focus to what we started this episode with, that seed.
Right.
We started with infertility and going, okay, there's some tension here. And the infertility, who gets the seed?
Right.
It very clearly looks like it was going to be Leah when we started out because she had all the kids.
Right.
But then, lucky for Rachel, she has a concubine. She could get it that way. Rachel then actually does have a baby.
Right.
So now it's, okay, Jacob, which one of these boys is going to carry the seed? So as we start next week in our podcast, we need to start crossing off potential seed carriers.
It's interesting because on the one hand, now as we're almost like the covenant and the seed kind of, they don't diverge.
Right.
Because up until this point, the covenant and the seed go together.
Yes.
And so the seed, I guess just to remind our listeners, is referencing back to Genesis 3.
Sure.
With God telling Eve, your seed will one day like destroy the serpent. And so that's the seed we've been following, whereas the Abrahamic covenant, that will go to all the sons.
Right.
But now we're still watching for that seed, like you said, Veronica, which one's going to have the son that breaks the back of the serpent. That's now the seed. But that only goes through one line.
Right.
But we have 2 wives.
Right.
1 line.
Right. So who gets to carry
And
it?
2 concubines. Yeah.
And who would Jacob pick?
Oh.
If Jacob got to pick, he's clearly going to pick his favorite wife.
Right. And Joseph.
Right.
And Joseph you would almost think would be the one.
Right.
By the end of Genesis.
Right. But God has other plans.
Right.
So
Interesting.
come back next week because we'll start crossing off boys' names off potential lists.
All right.
So thanks for joining us. This is the Context and Color of the Bible podcast. As always, we are on social media. Those graphics Erica was telling me to make.
Those are not mine. Those are all Ronnie.
Those are on social media. So if you want to see how because I'm a visual person.
They're really good. I enjoy them.
do better when I can see things visually. So if you want to see those, jump on Facebook, the Context and Color of the Bible, or Instagram,
Or Pinterest.
Or Pinterest. So that's actually the easiest way to make graphics. So we have those there. And as always, share this podcast with a friend.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something you heard today that went, oh, so-and-so needs to hear this. Let them hear it. Spread the word. So thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.